Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. We're taking a look here today at Arweave, which is AR. And I got a really big community here asking me to cover this, of course, because it has been performing very well in the last 24 to 48 hours. So be happy to jump in there. I took a quick peek at it, honestly, before I started this video, and I can tell you that it is looking very good. There's some really good signs here. It's exceeding its previous all-time high and making new highs right now. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, of course. And just before we do, I'd like to make sure to preface the fact that I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should do your own research and ensure that you are always learning as much as you can from as many people as possible. Hopefully I can be one of those. I like to help educate in my videos, so obviously stick around through to the end if you'd like to learn a thing or two here today. And if you're a return viewer, thank you so much for your patronage and or support. I couldn't be here without you. Honestly, you're what makes me do this every single day, or want to do it rather. You don't make me, but you make me happy, and I really do appreciate all the support and kinship that I found throughout this year. So thank you so much for that. And if you'd like to kind of follow my trading style, if you like what you see here, I exercise that every single day in my trading. And what I do is I share my trades with my community members. So link in the description below for that, and that's my premium Patreon account. But I recommend referencing that, maybe considering joining, because we do have closer to 50 members now in only 2 months, and it's growing a lot quicker than I had expected. So again, thank you to my patrons, but I basically provide you with entry points, profit targets, sell targets, and recently addition, of course, swing trades and hodl trades. So really cool stuff there. Check that out in your own time. But without further ado, why don't we just go ahead and jump into the charts? Let's get to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look here at Arweave. And just before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, get a quick baseline of the market so we know exactly what's going on, because Bitcoin controls the market for the most part, as we've seen recently and previously, of course. And a lot of coins are on the ERC20 blockchain as well, so it's important to look at Ethereum. I like to look at them first just so we can kind of get a baseline, but more importantly, just so you know, to answer your question, if you haven't referenced my videos before, this is tradingview.com desktop application. I have it set up a little different, of course, but it's essentially the same function as you would if you have a free version. I do recommend the paid versions, of course. That's what I have as well, because you get multiple indicators present at one time, more than 2 at any given time. And me, personally, I probably cycle with between 6 and 10 different indicators from the course of the 1-day chart all the way down to the 15-minute. Okay. So just keep that in mind. I have a link in the description below for a free month if you'd like to check that out in your own time. Now, what's really cool here about Bitcoin right now, first of all, just to quickly look at the 4-hour chart, we are currently up over the 50-day simple moving average. And that's extremely important because that is notoriously a strong support and resistance level. But what's fantastic here is the fact that we're up above. Now keep in mind, we're only about an hour and 15 minutes into this 4-hour cycle, or this 4-hour candlestick, so there's a chance it could come back down and close below. But it does have some pretty good momentum. What we want to see is some sideways action here for some consolidation, and then of course another ramp back up to 50,000. I think that's very likely at this point. Just note that on the 1-hour chart, I looked at this already. TD sequential is indicating that we are at 9, therefore we want to see some sideways action, preferably no retracement, of course, obviously, but to go sideways for a little bit longer, maybe a couple, 2, 4, maybe 6 to 8 hours, and then another ramp back up to 50. I think it's likely, considering the fact that the last few weeks, ever since this bull run has started, most weekends have been strong in the sense of more bullish sentiment versus a traditional trade-off on the weekends. Most times we see a sell-off on the weekends to the downside, but I have a feeling we're going to be continuing that progression on the upward scale here, just based on this history and the way things are going right now. A lot of grayscale news too that's really good. So look that up in your own time, of course, but let's go ahead and take a look here at Ethereum next. One thing also to note, pretty much the same situation. We are up above, back over the 50-day simple moving average, and we're back above as well. Again, this hasn't closed yet officially, but we have a support level, potential support level at 3250. Previous resistance, as we can see here, has been tested 4 times, but it's going to probably break above and stay above. Again, pending Bitcoin going sideways for a few more hours. Right? So all in all, Ethereum's looking pretty good here, pretty good shape. It's going to come back and hopefully test this tentative resistance of about 33.33. I noticed it was hovering at 33.33 for about a full 24-hour period there recently until we sold off on Bitcoin. So that's kind of what's going on with Ethereum. That's kind of the bottom line is what you're looking at. We do have a secondary support at about 2,900, and of course down here at about 2,400. But I think we're gonna see it kind of come up to this next resistance level, which was what I marked that, just so you know. Next resistance is about 35.50 for Ethereum. Okay. Moving on to Arweave. All right, so let's take a look at the 1-day chart first. And what we can see here is pretty quick and obvious. we broke the most recent all-time high. I believe that's the entire all-time high because I think the ICO date for this was back in September of 2020. Therefore, we're looking pretty good here. So what's awesome as well, we got this golden cross coming up here. In other words, when the 50 intersects with the 200 in upward fashion, is referred to as a golden cross. That could be the reason why the price is increasing as well, just in prediction of that. Oftentimes that does happen, where there's a lot of price action just before the golden cross completes itself. It basically just means that the price, the moving averages are essentially moving the price up and working itself into a strong support when they intersect in an upward fashion. Again, the 50 has to be below, coming upwards of the 200. That's considered a golden cross. This back here is considered a death cross when the 50 intersects downward with the 200. It's more like a divergence on the MACD, if you're familiar with that. So the one-day chart here, here's what's cool. First of all, we're above some previous support and resistance levels. So why don't we just go ahead and mark this real quick. And if you're unfamiliar, traditionally support levels, to draw them out, you can take the previous all-time high, and that's pretty much a very strong, very effective support once it's broken. Now, technically speaking, this one-day chart hasn't closed above yet, but I think it's pretty likely it's going to stay above, considering the fact that we've only got about 3 hours left in this trading cycle. We're about 21 hours into a 24-hour period, if you will. So the fact that it's retracing that far, that quick, is pretty low. So I think that we're going to safely say that that's going to close above. Therefore, this should be the new support level at about 33.38. Or what is that? We could say 33.50 is a round number, just based on the fact that that's really, really close. So that's kind of what you're looking at. 33.50 is a new support level. Another thing we could take a look at as well is, well, we'll look at the shorter time frames to go ahead and maybe do Fibonacci retracement just to ensure we have the right support and resistance levels. But this would also be a secondary support down here because obviously the price bounced off of that. Right, so that's kind of what we're looking at there. As far as RSI, it's back up over 70, which is normal in these type of bull runs. What's nice though, it was able to kind of calm down and retrace for a few days, allowing the second wave to occur. So this is pretty much actually a very healthy thing. So if you see this up over pattern, I talk about this a lot in my videos. In general, in my experience, when I've seen patterns like this in the past, they have a tendency of being very consistent. In other words, when you have a kind of a staircase pattern, whether or not it's days to complete or hours to complete, it's a healthy bull run when you see that. Now we want to look a little closer and see how this is increasing as well, because there's a chance this could just be a really sharp increase and it could be unhealthy. But I think the probability of this continuing upwards and or going sideways is much more likely than a retracement down to 33.50. Okay. So moving on, just to quickly note too, the MACD is pretty much bounced. So that we didn't technically get a convergence, but that's effectively the same concept. So nothing to really mark there, so to speak. But we do want to look at the MACD here, of course, and mark that on the chart. And what time was that? We had approximate MACD convergence between 17 and 2100. So just go ahead and roughly mark that there. I just like to see the correlation between the Ishimoku cloud on the 1 hour chart and the 4 hour chart for the MACD, because typically those things are very synonymous. And what's even cooler too is we're on the 4 hour chart here as well. The 50-day simple moving average, coincidentally, was broken very hard, very fast, right as soon as the MACD converged. Okay, so the 12 and the 26 intersected in an upward fashion. Those are the exponential moving averages on the MACD. That essentially gave us a buy signal. So had you gone long right there, you'd be up a decent percent right now, of right around 45%, just under. So that would have been an awesome case in point to take entry, is to look for a MACD on a coin like this. Again, easier said than done, of course, but the fact that it pumped previously, you always want to try to mark those on your alerts and set an alert for a MACD convergence. And typically you're going to see some pretty awesome things happening, especially when Bitcoin is ramping up like it did today. It's up about 5% in the last, 12 hours. Therefore, we're kind of seeing that correlation here too. In fact, why don't we go ahead and take a quick look at that? I'm sorry, I kind of jumped right in. Forgot to recognize the fact that, how does this react to Bitcoin? So in other words, April 17th would be the official first day of the retracement. So when this coin was actually calming down, we're going into the actual retracement for Bitcoin. Therefore, we're actually in very, very good shape. In other words, it didn't have to retrace very far, ramped back up like most altcoins do, and then see where May 19th translates. There we go. Yeah. So again, obviously it does, Bitcoin's success has a lot to do with this as well, right? I wouldn't say it's completely reliant on it because it's obviously done very well on its own, fairly recent. But you can see, I would say there's probably like a 50-75% correlation between Bitcoin movement and this one as well. So when Bitcoin does well, Bitcoin was in 50 to 60,000 range. Arweave was right in the range of about $20 to $30. Interestingly enough, Bitcoin is at 48 to 50,000 right now. It's actually lower than its average true range from before, yet the price is above. That's usually a very good sign of a coin that's probably going to continue moving past its previous all-time high and exceeding and creating new highs. So not saying you want to FOMO in, we want to look at some other things here, of course, but I think there's a strong likelihood of this continuing upwards and out. Again, may go sideways for a little while because that's a pretty strong increase in just a 48-hour period, but you never know. Good news is we got a strong support level again at 33.50. All right, let's take a look at the 1 hour chart and quickly just take a look here at the Ishimoku cloud. And what do you know? MACD convergence in the 4 hour chart signaled a crossover. So as soon as the price jumped above the cloud, the MACD is converging and it's basically saying, hey, we got a buy signal here. So when you get a buy signal on the Ishimoku cloud and the 4 hour chart for the MACD converging in an upward fashion, that's like a win-win. Those are things that I look for. So if you can set your alerts for either or, you're going to be in pretty good shape. But here is the bottom line. When the price is above the Ishimoku cloud, it's considered a buy signal. When it's below, it's considered a sell signal. So had you shorted right here, you would have got whatever percent profit that was, somewhere in the range of about 18-20%. Okay. Inverse also applies too. Had you taken a position right here as soon as the price broke above the cloud, you'd be up about 45%. Okay, so just things to look for. Those are good swing trader tools. As a day trader, may not be as significant, but for swing trading, absolutely recommend always utilizing those two things to see what that looks like. We also want to look at TD sequential here too, because there's a good chance we are overextended at this point and likely in overtime. So let's go ahead and see. Okay, well, we're almost there. So taking a look here, we got a good reset right about here, right around $31. But what TD sequential does is it basically tells us if there's if you got exhaustion in the direction that the price is heading. With us seeing an 8 up there, there's a chance we might see one more leg up. In other words, another a 9, so to speak, within the next hour. But the likelihood of this retracing and/or going sideways from here is pretty high, considering the fact that we've got 8 hours of bullish momentum, right? So this bullish trend from here to here, it saw approximately 40% from bottom to top price action in a bullish trend. So that being said, we want to be careful in the sense that the price will likely again go sideways and or possibly retrace. So if you look back here, look to see where the 9 happened on TD sequential. You can see 1 all the way up to a 9. Now it went sideways for about 5 hours and then it kicked up again. That could happen again, don't get me wrong. I think the likelihood is a little lower considering the fact that we've had 2 legs up in one day, again, 45% approximately. But the bottom line here is that, when you see a 9, it should start slowing down and losing momentum. And what we want to see after we see a 9 is some sideways action. Even a little bit of retracement is okay. I mean, you can kind of see that this went up here and then it kind of worked its way down and then back up, right? So just something to consider. Again, this is not foolproof by any means. TD sequential can give you some false signals, but I've noticed the most consistency on the 1 hour chart. So, what you do is you take a look at the MACD, obviously, on the 4 hour chart, identify if you got a convergence in the upside. Once you see that and you confirm the 1 hour chart tells us, hey, we've got the price above the cloud. That's great, ultimate buy signal. So just go ahead and go in right there. And then, of course, consider adding to your position after this 9 has been executed and we see a reset to the 1. Now, sometimes in this case here, we might see a 9 and then reset to a 1. It might go sideways for a while. So it might count up 1, 2, 3, and then back and forth. Consolidation periods can be hard to identify. If you see back here, obviously you see 1 through 8. Well, there was a 9 there and it reset, but you see 1 through 4, 1 through 5. That will happen. So we might see a lot of that in the near future here. But the reason why that's a good thing is because we need to have this kind of consistency in order to see another leg up, right? So if all goes well, we're going to be able to see, we're going to see something like this, right? Where it just keeps on doing this stepping pattern, okay? That's ultimately what we're looking for. So that means we might see some sideways action for some while. We might even see the price come down and bounce off here and continue upwards. Heaven forbid it comes down and we actually eventually lose this support. Then bear in mind it's going to work itself into a channel between right around 24.50 and 33.50. So it'll stay in here for some time and preferably break to the upside. But again, a lot of this is relevant in the sense of the fact that, again, Bitcoin is doing well right now, right? Overall, generally, I mean, it's safe to say in the last 12 hours, Bitcoin's performed well, 12%. Sorry, it was 5% for Bitcoin. Arweave has been increasing 40% in almost 2-day time frame, right? So a lot of that connection, that correlation is there. So just note that if Bitcoin's doing well, I'm venturing to guess that Bitcoin surpasses 50,000, perhaps even just say this weekend or soon, and actually closes on the 1-day chart at that point, then we're going to be looking in pretty good shape. Okay. So again, those are just things I look for. Switching over to the 15-minute chart, let's quickly identify EMA and VWAP, kind of see what's going on here. And it's pretty obvious. It's kind of almost null and void, honestly, because it's going to pretty much stay at this point until the price retraces or goes back down. But simply put, if you're new to the channel or just in general, how if you don't know how the how it actually works, VWAP is a volume weighted average price. It takes the volume the last 24 hours and expresses it as a price. And then the EMA is essentially the this red line here. That helps us understand where the bulls are in control. So when the price is above EMA, that kind of works as a support. And the same thing as well for VWAP. The VWAP, the volume weighted average price, is the volume last 24 hours expressed as a price. Therefore, it creates kind of a consistent support and resistance level moving alongside the price instead of just a static or a linear number of 3350, right? The previous all-time high. So what I'm getting at here is that when you look at the EMA and the VWAP, you enable those, so to speak. When the price is above both, that's kind of a consideration to go long because the fact that the bulls are in control and you're above support, right? So those are just two things I try to look for. Another thing to also try to identify, you can kind of see these little yellow up arrows telling us. Every time you see these yellow up arrows, essentially, at least that's an indicator that I have created here on mine. I share this with my patrons, by the way. It does this here in a sense because it actually notifies you that, hey, you've got two solid green bars in a row, giving you full on confirmation. In other words, prices above EMA, prices above VWAP, but furthermore, you have 30 minutes of confirmation letting you know that, hey, in the last 30 minutes, the bulls have kind of dominated, in here. In other words, a lot of times the bears will concede, let the bulls take over, and the price will increase. So just things to look for, of course. You don't need to use this fancy indicator that I have set up. It's really just as simple as identifying two solid green bars. Because if you can see here, there's a lot of entry points here. So there's an entry point there, entry point here, back here, back here. I mean, ultimately, you're looking for situations like this to ensure that, again, you're confirming, for one, you're not chasing the bottom, right? Obviously, this is a bullish trend, right? But a lot of times people try to chase the bottom and don't wait for EMA or VWAP to become leveled out. And if you do that, you're kind of you're not finding the lowest point, right? You can truly never find the lowest point. It's almost impossible. Sometimes you get lucky, but it's not really worth it. You're better off taking entry halfway, in this life cycle and maximizing your potential in that time frame, because then you know for a fact that it's actually moving the direction you want to head. It's not just kind of a gamble. You're more using the knowledge here and the actual charts to make an informed decision. You become the house, right? That's the important thing to do here. So what I'm trying to see here to see is the fact that, to clarify right now how this applies right now, just keep this in mind. Hypothetically, right now is still a good entry because you're above EMA and VWAP. However, you're a bit on the overextended side. The price is up over RSI and the MACD is kind of swinging back down potentially. So I would say to possibly hold off and see how the price responds, because we are at that overextension right now, right? We're at a 9 almost on TD sequential. We'll be at a 9 here in about 30 minutes. True, it could go up a little bit further, but if you have a position open, move your stop loss to somewhere around $32. Maybe 32. Yeah, I would say actually 33 would probably be good. Right around support in case the price comes down and bounces and come back up. But the key takeaway here is you got to learn to take your profits. So many average or amateur traders will leave so much money on the table. It's crazy how much it happens. Now I'm personally happy with 0.5%. I'm cool with that, right? I know it may not be a lot, might not be seem like a lot to you because all these YouTubers out there are bragging about 10, 20, 30x. Sure, that can happen, right? I mean, you could have 5x this coin had you invest at the right time. There's no doubt, but don't be afraid to take your profits, because I mean, honestly, holding on for dear life is one thing. Sure, if you know for a fact you're going to hold on to this for a long time, great, do that. But if you're in the green right now and you can take like a 200% profit, or even just say 20%, 10%, I would say take what you can and consider adding to your position when the price comes a little lower. Okay? Because again, my prediction here is that the price is going to go sideways and or retrace to test support of $33.50. I think that's inevitable. Again, if Bitcoin just keeps ramping up and shoots straight to 60,000, sure, it'll pump like crazy. Get back in if that's the case. But if Bitcoin kind of just takes its time right now, goes sideways for a little bit, goes up to 50,000, kind of tests and rejects, I would maybe consider taking some profit. Trim your position, sell 50% of your position, maybe add that 50% back when the price comes back lower. Okay, a lot of little things you can do, but don't leave money on the table. Don't get greedy. It's so easy and so common nowadays, and it's very unfortunate when people lose out when they're in the green, right? So I hope you understand what I'm getting at. I try to practice. I do practice what I preach, of course, but I try to help my my viewers essentially make sure that they know that best practice is the only way to survive in this industry. Don't gamble. It's not worth it. And if you like what you see here today, of course, feel free to consider joining my Patreon account. I share all of my trades with my patrons, and I usually send about 3 to 5 signals per week. I provide you with entry points, profit targets, sell targets, and of course a lot of swing trade and hodl trades as well. So good stuff going on there, growing a lot faster than expected. Only 2 months, we're closer to about 50 members. So jump on in there. If nothing else, you join in my Telegram community and you'll get engaged. That's a free community. Link in the description below for that as well. And we all just learn and grow together too. So that's what this whole community is for, right? I created this to ensure that we can make more profitable traders. So obviously, again, check that out in your own time. Thank you so much for joining me here today, and we look forward to seeing the next video. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.